Changing a country isn't easy, but change is inevitable. And the choices we make today will shape our country for generations to come. That's why we've published our first book from Australia Institute Press. What's the Big Idea offers 32 ideas for a better Australia, from leading thinkers such as Bob Brown, Sally McManus, Dr. Emma Shortis, and Professor Brian Schmidt. The essays are a roadmap and a reminder that the solutions exist. Australia just needs the courage to implement them. Visit australiainstitute.org.au or follow the link in the show notes to order your copy of What's the Big Idea today.
Hello and welcome to Dollars and Cents, the Australian Institute podcast where we're talking about just what the hell is going on in the economy. And what the hell is going on in the economy? Well, I have absolutely no idea, and I don't know if anyone else does. So that's why, as always, I'm talking to our chief economist, Greg Jericho. Greg, emphasis on hell. What the hell is going on?
Oh, Elinor.
I wrote a podcast script. I wrote a script for this yesterday,
It was
going to be about the tariffs, and I was like, okay, there's going to be a lot to talk about. And then I wake up at like 6 a.m., I look at my phone, and they've paused it. Or what?
Spare a thought for me. I wrote a column for Guardian yesterday that probably is a little, well, not completely out of date because I did throw around some colourful descriptions of the idiot in the White House, which I think still very much retain relevancy today. Yeah, look, it really is a what the hell is going on in the economy, and it is almost a case of if you understanding what is going on, then you're clearly not paying attention because it is just nuts.
Yeah. So just to recap.
Let's recap because it's basically a week. This is what's happened in a week. A week ago.
I was away last week. I was out of reception. And the first thing I did when I got back into reception, I looked at the news and the headlines were like, more tariffs. And I was like, oh, are there more? Like, is this new or is this about old? No, this is new tariffs.
New tariffs.
And then a week later, less than a week later.
Mr. Trade Representative, are you aware that the tariffs have been paused?
I am, yes.
When were you made aware of that?
Well, I understood the decision was made a few minutes ago.
Sitting here
under discussion.
What are the details of the pause?
Well, my understanding is that because so many countries have decided not to retaliate, we're going to have about 90 days.
No, excuse me? China increased their tariffs on the United States. Trump blinked.
So a week ago, we had Liberation Day, Trump's announcement of idiotic tariffs that made no logical sense on every nation in the world, including ones uninhabited by anything except penguins or just have a US Army base on them. So put tariffs on everybody, 10% tariff on Australia. This was going to revitalise America's economy, bring back all the factories.
Yep, heavy on the sarcasm.
And they came into effect. We're talking on Thursday. They came into effect Wednesday, our time. They lasted less than 24 hours before Trump, overnight, looking at, I think, the fact that the stock market was tanking. And so he announced that, now we're doing a 90-day pause. And he always likes 90-day pauses.
Yeah, if it's anything like the TikTok 90-day, it seems rather indefinite.
Something is in his brain that 90 days is a good number. So a 90-day pause on all these tariffs, but it's still not completely clear. For example, he'd also last week was announcing a 25% tariff on all motor vehicle imports. So we're not sure if that is staying in place. But even still, it's not like he's wiped all the tariffs or anything. It's just everyone's going to a flat 10%.
Except
China.
Based on the lack of respect China has shown to the world markets, he declared, I am hereby raising the tariff charge by the United States of America to 125%.
Are you concerned of escalation beyond the trade war with China?
No, I'm not concerned. I think President Xi is a very smart guy. And I think we'll end up making a very good deal for both. But, we've been treated so badly for so many years.
So what that means for Australia is nothing's changed. We were given a 10% tariff. We've still got a 10% tariff. It's just all these other nations. Japan had, I think, 24 or 25. Korea had 24 or 25 around there. Europe had higher ones as well. They're going back to 10%. The difference is China has 125%, which seems absurd.
Because it is.
Because yesterday it was only 104%. The couple of days before it was 60%.
Yeah.
It's because China are responding with, we can raise tariffs as well.
Yeah.
And so let's be honest, it's become a bit of as often things are with Trump, a dick measuring contest. And he has decided to keep that in place. And so what we have is the world's biggest economy putting 125% tariff on the world's second biggest economy. The world's second biggest economy having, I think, 60 or 80%, something like that. The numbers are moving around so quickly. Tariff on the biggest economy. This is not good for anyone, but certainly not good for Americans.
No.
Australia is caught up in the wash. The big upshot, though, was when he announced this sort of return to some sort of normalcy, the stock market in America went mad and everyone was like, oh, hooray. And they had a huge gain, one of the biggest one-day gains in history. Of course, it's still lower than it was a week ago, so it's only undone a little bit. It's like, and so all of Trump's acolytes and Trump himself are like, look at how great he is. He's amazing. So it's kind of, there's been quite a few sporting analogies and things of basically,
there was a headline in the New Yorker that Trump is turning the entire market into a meme stock. So instead of everyone sort of, was it a few years ago, buying GameStop, to the moon, as they say. It's just,
it really is a case of, he stopped hitting us in the face, so we're all feeling better, but we're actually still in pain.
Yeah.
And everyone's going, oh, wow, he stopped hitting you in the face. How wonderful he is.
For 90 days.
Yeah, for 90 days. And this is why I think, over the past week, I've had quite a few interviews from journalists going, oh, what does this mean for your super and all this? And I'm like, don't look at your super account, especially not on a day-to-day thing. No one ever does. Most people don't even know how much they got in their super. And it's a case of, are you really living and dying by the thought bubbles of Donald Trump and how that's going to deal with how much money you'll have to retire in maybe 25, 30 years' time? Retain your sanity. Forget it. Watch the footy. Watch whatever. And just relax about such things. But we're in.
That's not what we're here to do.
We're in an incredible, bizarre state of affairs, and I think we should always remember this is not normal. This is, it's almost we kind of forget actually, and it's only been 90 days. I think 90 days that Trump's been in power, even if it's been that long, and it's amazing how quickly you can. And media organizations as well can kind of start treating this as, this is how it just is. And it's like, no, this is not how it just is or just should be.
I mean, we'll see if these tariffs come back in, but even the way that they calculated the initial tariffs that they placed on everyone just seemed very sort of doing your homework at the last minute. Can you explain how they did calculate them?
Well, apparently it was done by Chat GPT, which is just extraordinary, which is probably why we had some places that were just inhabited by penguins getting it. It was literally, the formula was exports by America minus imports to America divided by imports to America for each country. So basically the trade balance and then divided by 2. And that was what they called the tariff. Now, everyone kind of pointed out that this was utter insanity. And so the White House put out a statement saying, no, this was the formula we used. And instead of writing exports minus imports divided by imports, they used Greek letters to make it sound like it was really mathematical, you know, epsilon and gamma and all this, and it makes it look like a mathematical formula. And they didn't just, but everyone quickly worked out that the letters that they used just represented exports minus imports divided by imports, but they also had a weird little thing on the bottom line, which was something divided by 1 over that something, which everyone realized was actually 4 times by a quarter.
Oh, so
which is 1. So, which means you can cancel that out. So it ended up just being exports minus imports divided by. It was
the phrase that comes to mind is deeply unserious, I think.
Yeah. And it certainly seems that it was done by Chat GPT, because even the figures that they came up with for the trade deficits seem not quite accurate. For example, Norfolk Island got picked up. And that was because on one website, which is a pretty good website, but not an official government website, listed Norfolk Island as having this trade deficit. And it turned out that no, that was because there was obviously in their coding on the website, they misnamed trade from Norfolk in England as Norfolk Island. So suddenly Norfolk Island was exporting all these shoes and leather goods to America, which people in Norfolk Island were a little bit confused about where the shoe factory is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and I think the whole point is that he is worried about trade deficits.
Yeah.
That's what he's actually worried about, not tariffs. He has this utter confusion that a trade deficit is a tariff, and also that a trade deficit is bad, which is just insane.
Yeah, if you're in a trade deficit, you're losing because now the other guy has your money. So
he had massive trade. He put a massive tariff on, for example, Madagascar.
Yeah,
and you think Madagascar's got big tariffs on America? No, it's just that Madagascar is a really small country. Sells a lot of vanilla.
Yeah.
And America doesn't have a lot of stuff that people in Madagascar particularly want or need. And they don't have a lot of money to buy either. So to buy it. So they have a trade deficit with America. And the important point, I think, is that trade deficits are not bad.
No. So why is America in a trade deficit with so many countries?
Well, mostly because America's really big, really rich. And a lot of these countries are not so big and not so rich. I mean, Vietnam is a classic one. Vietnam make a lot of, for example, Nike shoes and T-shirts and things like that. Now, think of it, Vietnam is a lot smaller population than America, and their income is a lot smaller. So even if they were just going 1 for 1, Americans going to be able to buy a lot more stuff from Vietnam than Vietnamese can buy from America, just if you're thinking in that terms. But also think of what Vietnam are making. They're making shoes and making T-shirts. Well, any person can make a lot more shoes than they can buy of shoes. So even if it was just they were talking shoe exports or something, there's going to be a lot more Americans buying shoes than there are Vietnamese because there's more Americans. And Americans have got more money to buy those things. So that's really the main reason. But even a place like China, which has got more population than America but isn't as rich, they've got a trade deficit because Americans like buying stuff from China and from these other places because it's cheaper than if it was made in America. And the iPhone is the classic.
Yeah, I mean, something that's sort of come up a lot in these discussions that I'd like you to talk a bit more about is the idea of comparative advantage. Yeah, can you just explain a bit more?
Yeah, it's a fancy sort of economic thing, and sometimes it does get overused by policymakers because it ends up with, all Australia should do is mine things and do tourism, and we shouldn't do anything else. But basically what it translates to is if a country can make something cheaper and more efficiently, more productively than you, then they should do that, and you should import that rather than you do it. Because, let's think about an iPhone. If Chinese, because of their wages, because of their overall income, are able to, and perhaps because of their skills and the technology they have, and certainly they do have technology to make things like the screens and things for iPhones. If they're able to do that, and it means you can sell an iPhone for $1,000, whereas if you were doing exactly the same thing in America and it was going to mean the iPhone was $2,000, well, then it's better for everyone that it's made in China and the American consumer buys it for $1,000 rather than, we made it in America, but our American consumers are going to have to pay double. It's the case of realizing that an economy is not just production, it's also the consumption. It is actually good for an economy to be able to buy things cheaper because that improves your living standards because you have more stuff. You can buy more things with your money. Now, where it gets really twisted is when that means, oh, we shouldn't have a car industry.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, actually, there are some benefits from having a car industry. Yeah, if you did the pure economic formula, it might be not so great. But the reality is there is some benefit from having jobs. And when you go pure comparative advantage, you kind of end up not producing anything. And you just, as I say, in Australia, we're digging stuff out of the ground because that's our comparative advantage. It's like, okay, that's great on the economic textbook, not so great for society. So you don't want to go full blood into it, but certainly for Americans, you think about it like the way Trump looks at it is that any import is a loss.
Mm.
And so Nike shoes are a great thing. China, Vietnam, they make Nike shoes. Okay, Nike's an American company. They make profits because of where they're using cheaper labor and the skills and the technology or whatever they've got in Vietnam and China. That actually is good for the American economy because also it's, yes, they're importing shoes from China and Vietnam, but it's not like people are buying them from China and Vietnam. Foot Locker or
the Nike store.
Yeah, a store is buying them. Who's selling them? Americans. They're jobs. People are earning jobs selling these things. Who's doing the marketing? It's all Americans who's doing all of the where all the supply chains, the deliveries, all of that. It's not like that import is a loss. No, imports actually create jobs. Australia often has more imports than exports, but a lot of the imports are creating jobs. Like if we import a big piece of equipment and we often have seen this big equipment coming in for mining companies and things like that. It's not like that equipment then just sits there and it's lost. No, hopefully someone is using that. Someone is being employed to use it, and that is creating economic activity. And it would have been better for us to import that thing rather than, oh no, let's try and build it from scratch here.
Yeah.
Matt Grudenoff made a really good analogy that went up on our live blog last week where he pointed out we all have a trade deficit with our supermarket.
Yeah.
We all have a trade deficit with the place we buy clothes from. And that's because it is better for us to do that than to have a trade balance or a trade surplus. The only place we have a trade surplus with is our employer because we give them our labor. They don't really give us anything in return apart from money, but that's, where the surplus comes. But if we were to decide, oh, I don't like all these trade deficits I have with Just Jeans, I'm going to make my own jeans.
Yeah, good luck with that.
It's like, okay, that's going to take a lot of my time and effort and money.
Yeah.
Which means I won't actually be able to spend all that time and effort in my job where I have a trade surplus and get the money to be able to pay for these things that I've got a trade deficit with. And it's like, oh, look, I've made these jeans. They're worse quality. They cost a lot more. I wasted all this time doing that instead of doing other things. But, oh, great. I've now got a trade balance with Just Jeans. It's that kind of thinking.
Yep.
It's just complete nuts. And even the 125% tariff that Trump has in place for China, China is, I think, the biggest import destination or import sort of origin with America. And they, he's still making things a lot more expensive for America. And even the 10% that he's flat rate at, it's basically like he's just announced a 10% sales tax on all imported goods because that's exactly what it is. Who's paying for it? Americans. And unless their income has suddenly gone up 10%, which I don't think it has in the last week.
I don't think so.
They're all worse off.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like up until, all this, well, pretty much the start of the year, we'd be talking on the podcast every week about like, oh, Australia's, we're dipping our toe into recession. Maybe there's a per capita. We're going backwards. But I mean, with all of this going on, Are we now on the recession train?
Oh, look, I never like saying that. And also, it's really hard to base it on anything. How can you predict anything when the biggest variable is a lunatic who his trade policy that he spent forever announcing was going to be the greatest thing, was going to deliver prosperity and wealth, said that he's been talking about this for 30 years and it didn't last a week.
Yeah.
So I have no idea. All I know is, look, the tariffs on China are not good for Australia because China is our biggest export market. If China suffers, we're going to suffer because they're going to need less of our stuff. They're going to want less of our stuff because they don't have as much income as they used to, in a sense. So that's not good for us. We've still got the 10% tariff on us, which is not great for those industries. Beef especially. There is big concerns that he is going to go after pharmaceuticals. He's got a real bee in his bonnet about pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceuticals are one of our biggest exports to America. So, there's still a lot of uncertainty ahead. And, uncertainty is also not good for companies because you make investment decisions on the basis of certainty. If you think things are going to be good, you will invest more. No one has any clue. And this also goes to the whole idiocy of Trump's thing. He's saying, I'm going to bring back those factories. The Nike factory, the iPhone factory, they're all going to come back to America. It's like, well, if you were Apple, why on earth would you decide to move your factory and all the costs that is going to involve from Vietnam or wherever, when you're like, hang on, in a week's time, he might change his mind and suddenly there's no tariffs. I'm not going to do that. You only do that if you think, this is what the tax situation is going to be for the next decade or so. And as I say, it can't even last a week. So who knows?
Who knows?
Certainly we know that the Reserve Bank, interest rates are looking much more likely to fall. But I mean, these things, as I say, this changes really quickly. Yesterday, before this announcement, the market was pricing in a 77% chance of a 75 basis point cut in interest rates in May. That's essentially 3 interest rate cuts, bang, 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 all in May.
Yeah.
What that is right now, I have no idea because who the hell knows?
Yeah. Oh, dear God. Yeah. I mean, among all this uncertainty, it turns out we still have an election campaign going on.
God, yeah.
Yeah. Seems, oh gosh, in the face of all this, yeah. I'm sure that's created a lot of uncertainty in the campaign offices for everyone. How are the leaders dealing with this?
It's been one of the worst things about it is Peter Dutton has been doing his level best to suggest that all this uncertainty and concerns about a recession are Anthony Albanese's fault, because Jim Chalmers gave a press conference where he noted that
we're also seeing this volatility in markets for gold as people look for safe assets. We're seeing it in the tumbling oil price as well. And we're seeing it in our own economy too when it comes to the Australian dollar bouncing around either side of 60 cents. That is largely a reflection of people's concerns about the Chinese economy, but it also reflects the fact that markets are now expecting around 4 interest rate cuts in Australia this calendar year.
He just sort of was noting, look, he was talking about there's great uncertainty, but yes, the Reserve Bank didn't cut rates, but the market's pricing in a 50 basis point rate cut because of concerns about Trump. And Peter Dutton and Angus Taylor have made this sound like, Jim Chalmers is panicking and calling for a 50 basis point rate cut because he knows there's going to be a recession under his watch.
Now, the Treasurer's out there talking about a 50-point reduction in interest rates, which means obviously that he sees a recession coming for our economy. He wouldn't be talking about 50 points as a reduction next month if he didn't believe that there was going to be a significant souring of the Australian economy on his watch.
And it's like, that's completely wrong and idiotic. On Tuesday night, there was a leaders debate that was incredibly boring, but had some good questions. On Wednesday night, there was a treasurer's debate that was just the biggest shit show I've ever encountered in my life. I mean, you think you don't get an hour back of your life from watching the leaders debate, but watching the treasurer's debate was an hour of literally me punching myself in the face for no good reason.
Yeah, did anything useful come out of it?
It was very badly moderated, shall I say, where neither Angus Taylor or Jim Chalmers really got to say much. There's been a lot of numbers thrown around that are completely wrong. Peter Dutton and Angus Taylor have both been saying that grocery prices have gone up 30% under Labor, which was just a number plucked out of the air, I'll say nicely. It's only 12%. So they're out by more than half. Ted O'Brien, the opposition energy spokesman, he's been saying that electricity prices, are up by $1,300 a year. And I did my level best to try and work out how he found that number. No one's been able to work it out. So I listened to what he said he used, and I used that and came to about $500. So again, only out by $800. Yep. And also that the numbers that he were using don't include the government's rebate. So I then sort of applied it to, if you took that into account, you'd find that actually probably retail people in households on general probably paying only about $75 more than they were at the last election. So, there's a lot of crap been going around. The big thing today is the opposition have announced a creation of a new fund that will be part of the Future Fund. It's sort of like we're in Future Fund 0.3.6.1 or something now. There are so many
Future
of them.
Fund, final.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's all under this guise of, what they've said they're going to do. And as I say, when I'm recording this, I'm going on accounts that were dropped to The Australian, who gave it the most glowing review you could ever hope for. It seems that they are going to put 80% of any what they call windfall revenue from the mining sector into a fund rather than spending it, which people think, oh, wow, they're putting a windfall tax on mining.
That sounds... No. Oh, okay.
No, they are not putting a windfall tax on mining at all. All they are doing is, and this is, again, it's incredibly sketchy, but from what I can gather, let's say they say in the budget, in the next 12 months, we reckon that the mining companies will pay $60 billion in revenue.
Yep.
We'll estimate that. And in that 12-month period, iron ore prices go up higher than the budget anticipated. And so they raise $65 billion in revenue from the mining sector. And they go, oh, wow, that was $5 billion windfall. We'll put that in basically an offset account.
Yeah.
And it's like, did you think of taxing those windfall gains like you would a super profits tax? Or no, they're not doing that. It's just really going, oh, we got our estimate wrong, and the difference we're going to call a windfall, and so that's it. It's
and they could spend it.
They could spend it, but what they're going to do is, and it's a bit like all these funds, they're all complete boondoggles. It's not like it goes off budget or anywhere. It's still revenue that comes in. It's just that they are putting it in essentially an offset account, where that offset account will invest in stocks and bonds and things like that and earn interest. And then they'll use that interest to build roads and things. So
yeah. I mean,
instead of going, oh, wow, we got $5 billion more, we can build this necessary road or highway or train line or heck, spend it on education or health now. What we're going to do, because we're really clever, we're going to put that $5 billion in a fund, wait for it to earn interest, which will take years to get maybe $5 billion so we can build that road or highway or whatever. But now that it's 5 to 6 years later, the road is in more dire need of repair. The costs of everything have gone up, so we probably need more than 5 or 6 billion. And the citizens of that area going, why have we had to put up with 5 to 10 more years of a shitty road just so you could say, oh, look how prudent we're being with money. We're not spending.
I mean,
it's insane. I hate these funds so much. It's the same with the Housing Australia Future Fund, where the government's like, oh, we're putting billions into the Housing Australia Future Fund, and it's just, they're not putting money anywhere. It's just, it's nothing. And they're saying, oh, we will invest in housing, and when we get the returns off that housing, we'll build some housing with that returns. Right? Why don't you just build the bloody housing now?
Also,
borrow the money, build them. People are better off. The economy's better off. Society's better off.
Also, considering potentially the volatility of the global economy right now, it seems a bit putting all that money and investing it.
Well, also
when you could just spend the money.
It's also a weird time to say, oh, we're going to do a mining future fund. It's like, where were you in 2002 or something? Or where were you even in 2019 where it would have been really good for gas? And also, does this apply to gas? And also, you do realize you're not taxing these mining companies anywhere near what you should be. So it really is just, they're trying to make it sound like one that they're putting some sort of windfall tax on things, which they're not, very much not. All it is an incentive to get your predictions for what the budget will be wrong and then claim that, oh, wow, look at all this windfall.
It's personal to you.
Yeah. It's a bit like you saying, I know how much, you know how much you're going to earn next week, but you say, I'm actually going to anticipate next week I'm only going to get 80% of that. And then next week when you get what you normally pay, you go, wow, I got 20% more windfall. And it's like, no, you were just stupid in your anticipation of what you were going to get. I mean, this is literally where we're at, and yet it's sort of been written up as, oh, wow, they are really being prudent, and this is how are Labor going to counteract this? Labor could counteract by saying, we're going to fund roads and education and health now because that's what governments should do. The Liberal Party are saying, no, you have to wait 10 years for something. And it's, again, also it's just a big boondoggle as well. We've seen these funds being raided, especially by the National Party in the past. It's a nothing thing. But unfortunately, media and journalists, they love the sound of these future funds. They think, oh, wow, it's like the Norway Sovereign Fund. And it's like, no, the Norway Sovereign Fund actually comes from specific taxes on Norway oil and gas that go into that sovereign fund because they realize, you know what, we really should tax those companies really well. Whereas here we're just going, how about if we get our estimates wrong? That's a smart way to run the economy.
Every time
I have frustrated.
Every time we try to end, I'm like, how do I end this on a positive note? And you really just don't make it.
We got through the week. That's positive.
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
We're all still going.
Well, I mean, if the 90-day 10% tariff holds for longer, that's better than it was. That's positive.
Yeah. More uncertainty is good.
Greg, you're not helping me here.
I'm not. I'm not here to help you. I'm sorry.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, in that case,
I don't think anyone can help anyone in this situation at the moment. It is so bizarre. But hopefully we have been able to at least clear away some of the smoke and mirrors and just general idiocy that is going around at the moment. But thank you all for listening. Thank you, Elinor, again for coming back to us after your week away.
And thank you. It was actually very refreshing.
It was in Tasmania, wasn't it?
I went hiking. Didn't hear the word tariff for a whole week.
Oh, I envy you. Hopefully we won't hear the word tariff for another 90 days, but I doubt it. But thank you all for listening. We really do appreciate all your listens. And please, any feedback you would like to give us, always appreciated. Leave us a review. Always great to help get word out. But also, we will see you all again next week. However, this episode of Dollars and Cents was recorded on the 10th of April. And I got a feeling, Elinor, some things may have changed.
Oh, don't jinx it.
Some things, maybe everything has changed. Who knows? We live in hope of some stability. We'll be back next week with another Dollars and Cents on hopefully more of the economy, but we'll be running up to Easter as well. So hopefully we can have a bit more peace going then. My column, which is slightly a bit out of date, but also talks about just all the massive changes in interest rates that are going on and expectations where we're just seeing wild swings. You can find that on the Guardian Australia site for all our research and especially all our coverage of the election campaign. You can find on our website, which is at australiainstitute.org.au. Definitely go there, check out Amy Ramikis's live blog. It is absolutely spectacular, and there is so much fact-checking and everything going on from all of our researchers. It will really help you find out what is the reality in this election campaign and get through the spin. Our music, as always, is by Blue Dot Sessions. Everyone, have a great week. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you all next week.
See ya.